Hey everybody, today we're taking a look at my new build and my build log. This is going to be a 6S DIY BetaFPV Pavo 30 Pro frame kit. That is a mouthful. Same frame kit as their Pavo 360. Let's get right into it. So wrap up summary in my opinion first, build log after. Build log is 20 minutes. It's pretty straightforward. So the idea for this came from repurposing some of my other stuff. So my very first drone was a Protek 35. It flew good, but it had some jello. I wasn't really flying it that much after I got the Nazgul. I built the Protek 25, which is another video if you want to see that one. So I am getting into some Cinewhoops. I'm starting to do some real estate work for a contractor friend of mine. So I wanted a newer, slightly smaller, better flying Cinewhoop that I could do for indoor use. So I decided to take all of the guts out of the Protek 35 and then repurpose it into this frame. I'm a big fan of Troncat. I love all of his videos, so I'm kind of just like following his leads as far as builds that he's doing. So when we come in here close, here are a lot of things that I really like about this compared to the Protek 35. Maybe some good ideas or tips, tricks, and things like that for you when you're considering a different frame kit or for your builds. So if we take a closer look at it in all of its finished glory here, right, it's a real nice frame kit, really easy to assemble, nice and straightforward. One of the other reasons for upgrading anyways was I made the Pavo 25 a 6S quad, so I wanted to bump this up so I can just be all on the same battery system. Yeah, I'm building a 7-inch after this. Everything's going to be 6S except for my Nazgul, which I originally bought as a 4S. So once that dies or something, I'll be on a full 6S system. What's nice about this, obviously easy assembly, right? We've got the surface mounted XT60 connector that's right in here, but there's a lot of easy access to the electronics through the side. And that was one of the biggest drawbacks to the Protek 35 is they had side plates all the way. And even though they had some right angle adapters, eventually they broke or they stopped working. So we have easy access on the sides, left and right. Okay, and I'll come back to that in a second. But so in the front here, you've got your camera. It's got a TPU mount, right? You've got your ELRS receiver that actually goes under the front and up here. Yes, on the back side, I made this 3D print here. So if anybody wants this, I'll put a file to my Thingiverse where you can go find it. Yes, it's kind of like a hybrid of the 3D file that they have included with this. And then I took the LED from the original Protek 35 and I used those source files from iFlight and kind of just mashed together so it has an LED in the back, which I thought was kind of cool right here. I might eventually change the antenna here to an SMA or something like that, but for right now, it kind of is what it is. But you can see you have a lot of easy access in here to get to the side pieces. Yeah, so you can mount the air unit. I mean, if you're going to do like digital and all this other stuff or analog, you could do that, but there's two mounting places, right? I've got the air unit up front, and then I have the ESC or the AIO, yeah, all-in-one board here on the bottom. So that's kind of nice. So when you peel this apart, you have easy access to the two components. You don't need to take the air unit off top of it, right? So it's not like one huge stack, okay? The other nice thing too is I also mounted in here, I have a Vifly beeper. Okay, so this you can just Velcro it to the side. I thought that was really easy access because, right, this doesn't have a beeper. If you don't buy a beeper, you're not going to have one, but this has a little LiPo battery in it as well. So if you happen to eject the battery, this thing will still beep. And the nice thing about this is you can just, like I said, Velcro it to the sides here so it's easy on and off when you want to turn it off and on, which was an issue with having this on the Protek 35 frame here. And then with that too, you also, if you just remove the Velcro right here, right, with this particular board, I don't know if you can see in there, I have direct access to the USB port if I want to make changes through Betaflight or whatever. But as you'll see in the video, I also installed a SpeedyBee Bluetooth module in here, so I no longer need cords. I can do almost all of my changes or modifications through the app on the phone. And then the same thing with the air unit. I inverted it just to make sure, and you'll see in the video, to make sure that the UFL connector is underneath, so it's easy access. It's not sandwiched between the top plate, and you almost have access to the USB port on the side here. It is a tight squeeze in case you ever need to connect back to the air unit, but that is very few and far between. Aside from that, this thing flies really good. It's nice, it's smooth, it's quick, it's snappy. I've got a couple different profiles for it between like buttery smooth indoor type of stuff or something a little more snappy for like freestyle. But keep in mind, it is a Cinewhoop. It's not nearly as agile as an actual freestyle drone or something like that. But real clean, lightweight, stores away nicely. Yes, very, very happy with this build and the way that it flies. So with that being said, the flight footage is in another video. I'll put a little card or a link up above. I'm not going to put it at the end of the build log. But once this thing was finally built, it actually took 3 to 4 more weeks before I could actually get it to fly. I ended up getting a couple bunk motors from BetaFPV, but their customer service is right on point. They sent me out 2 new motors, and this thing was back in the air in no time. So I got the HG LRC, what are these? Geolus motors, 2004s at 1500 kV. Yeah, it flies great. And even when I strap a GoPro 9 to this, yeah, full size, it's a little heavy, but it's still snappy. But I also have a Hero 9 or a 10 naked one that if I put that on here, it's super light and it's nice and responsive. So really just depends on what you want to fly with. Ideally, a naked GoPro is going to be the way to go because it's going to be super light and give you that extra responsiveness that you need, want, and desire. But yeah, so on to the build log. If you have any additional questions, drop those below, and I'll see you all in another video. All right, what's up, everybody? Today we're going to be building a Pavo 36S Cinewhoop. It's about time. I just completed a Pavo 20 a few months ago. This thing's running really good. I want to try and build out a couple nice Cinewhoops that I can start to use for like a business. So this is going to be the next one, just a little bit bigger, something I can handle a little bit better on a breezy day, and we'll have a little more space. So some of the parts are going to be new. Some of it we're repurposing. I'm going to show you everything that we got. So we got the Pavo 30 frame right here. For motors, we're going with the HDLRC Aeolus 2004 motor, 1800 kV, and they only had them in purple, so it doesn't really matter to me. So we got those. Those are a good price. Jim Fan D76 5 blades. And then the newest thing that I've been adding to all of my quads is going to be the SpeedyB Nano Bluetooth, whatever you want to call it, right? You can wire this up to a UART, turn on MSP, and you'll be able to wirelessly connect via Betaflight and change all of your different settings. Because it's one of the biggest frustrations I have on the Cinewhoops is you can never reach the stupid USB port. So say goodbye to this. I put this on my Pavo 25. Oh my God, a million times easier, plenty of space, super small profile, and no more using one of those stupid L micro brackets to get into it and it doesn't work, and then eventually the stupid USB port breaks off just like my Nazgul. Sorry, I'm venting there. And then we've got the Protek 35 that I got at the beginning of last year, so we're going to repurpose all of the electronics here. Yeah, we got the Polar Vista up here, right? This has got a Beast AIO, so we're good to go there. And then I'm going to do my ELRS, which I have right here, so this is an EP1. And then the last thing I'm going to add in is the ViFly Finder 2. I've had this laying around almost since I got the Protek 35. I just never got around to installing it. But a couple times I ejected the battery, I couldn't find the drone. So then you buy this, right? So you wire it into the flight controller. Yeah, and if it loses power, this thing beeps, and then that way you'll always be able to find it. So I think with the frame, we're going to look at that here in a second on the Pavo 30. There's going to be some extra space for me to like print out a 3D print. So I'll have easy access to the button as well, instead of having it like, using Velcro to stick or something like that. So we'll take a look at that here shortly and see what else we can work out. So this is everything that's in the box here, right? We got our different ducts up here. Yeah, and depending on the size of a stack that you're using, we got these little tabs. We might have to break these off because it might not be necessary. So we'll see, we'll talk about that when we get there. And you got the top plate here. This looks real good, right? And on both of them, they have like kind of the countersunk holes so that when you screw your bolts in, right, they kind of recess and go in a little bit deeper. Yeah, same thing here with this frame. So we got a nice little, basic X frame. Yeah, top and bottom. Then over here we got all of our TPU parts. So you got some little motor skid pads right here, some stuff for the camera. They also include like a GoPro holder adapter here. And we got some of our foam. And what else is over here? A little battery pad up top. Right, you got some screws, all of that good stuff. And then this also here, they give you 2 of these. So we've got our XT60 connector. This is kind of cool. So we're going to be able to mount this right into it. Yeah, and then it'll go inside like so. I don't know which way it goes yet. All right, I want to say it goes like this, which is probably how it goes. And there's gonna be a couple other things that we need to put on here, so we'll take a look at that. I am once again using TronCat FPV's build video in order to do this. One thing I did see him do is once he kind of put this through in here, regardless of what side it was on, right, and then he soldered it onto the onto the flight controller. It was almost like, because the flight controller is mounted down here and then this is like soldered onto the flight controller, that when you go to take the top plate off, it's always just kind of like wiggling around and being right here. So I don't know, I might add in just an extra little connector on the inside, like maybe like one of my XT30s that I have laying around. That way if I want to pull this off, I can completely pull it off. I don't know, it's just a thought, but I'm thinking that that's something that I might actually do. But first I need to strip this down, desolder the motor wires and all of that great stuff. So once that's done, I'll see you in the next step. Okay, so I got this pulled apart and there's a few things that are kind of like catching my eye before you even get started. So I want to kind of address those with you. Food for thought. So let's see here. I'm surprised that there's not a cool little LED light supplied with the Pavo 30, but there is with the Pavo 25. So I'm probably just going to end up saving this one off of the Protek, and then I'll figure out if I can find like a 3D print or something for the back at a later point in time, just to save myself for that. One of the things I did notice here, let me zoom in on my ESC here, is that actually the capacitor or whatever here had broken free. I haven't been flying this that much, but I don't know if that added to any of the weird flight characteristics, but it was always cruising style, so I'm just going to replace that anyways. Then we have the built-in, the flush mount XT60, so that's kind of giving me some weird feels too, because if you take this piece right here, the ducts, and you put it on, you kind of mock everything up, and then you go to put the top plate on, it's like a real tight squeeze from where the wire comes down. It really hits the bottom plate here. I don't know, let me see if I can tip it up so you can see it. So it's kind of squashed under there. Trying to bend it and loosen it up a little bit, and it is moving, but they got that tolerance down right to the T. So this will reach, so I think actually what I'm gonna do is what I said, right? I'll probably just put like an XT60 or an XT30 right here. This will help reach the top of the board, and then that'll give a little bit of space. If I ever need to take the top plate off, I can take it off completely without yanking it off of the board. And then since this was mounted kind of diagonally facing forward on the Protek 35, right, this is kind of a square mounting pattern over here, so I am going to have to rotate it 45 degrees to one angle, which should be fine. That means that I'm either going to take the capacitor, right, and kind of put it on the top over the board, but actually not, because we're going to talk about the air unit in a sec as well. Yeah, so I might just have to take the capacitor, run it out here towards the middle and come back, and then redo this. I'm going to have to do that anyways. But with this, right, they give you spots here on the top plate where you can mount the air unit to it and bottom mount it here. So they're separated, so it's not just one full stack. However, they don't give you any screws or nuts. All right, so Brandon from the future, upon further review, I have found the correct hardware that I needed. I don't know where it was or why I didn't see it. So now I can take these screws out that I brought from the Protek. So these ones are going to be long enough to go through the bottom right here, right, and then up into the flight controller. Then I can screw this down. They give me some nylon nuts over here. They only give you 4 black nylon nuts and then 4 that have they're like a nylon lock nut. And I'm going to assume that those go with the longer one, and this longer bolt is long enough to go through the air unit and through the top plate there, so that way if a screw ever comes loose, that the air unit doesn't fall down, right? Because obviously the flight controller can just stay on the board. If a nut comes off, it's not going to go anywhere because it's already on the bottom part of the surface. So I'm going to put these shorter ones down here, lock it down with a lock nut, and then I'm going to use these ones, and now we can move the air unit into the top plate. But it would have worked fine as a full stack. All right, back onto the video. So let's do some easy stuff first. We'll put the motors on first. And we got these nice little pads, and obviously I'm only going to do 2 bolts per just to hold it in place. And just in case I need to take anything off. So you got 2 different kinds. You got these like button heads, or you've also got the regular kind of ones like that. I think this is probably going to be fine. I like these, I don't know what you call them, flat heads, recessed hex ones. Yeah. So anyways, one underneath there. So next we're going to do what I was going to say. I'm going to clip these wires right here, put another XT60 in between. I know it seems a little redundant or maybe a waste of a gram or 2, but I really like that modularity of being able to unplug it if I pull the top off and not just have it dangling off of the ESC or the flight controller. So that's what we're going to do first, and then I'll be back after that. Okay, so now that's ready right here. This will mount to the top plate. Yes, it'll plug in right here. And we're going to have plenty of extra space underneath, so now all I have to do is just solder this onto the board and add the new capacitor, and we're good to go. All right, so we're done here. This actually looks decent for me. I'm not the best at soldering, but I'm getting better here. All right, so we've got this on here real nice and solid. I've got the capacitor on kicking off to the side. And then if you look at the frame over here, right, this is the front, so I'll be able to lay this down. This is looking good, yeah. And then all I need to do is I'm going to soft mount this. I'm going to set the motor wires up. And then we need to put on the Bluetooth dongle and all the other things. All right, so we've got this all set up. I would say that this board is definitely a pain in the ass because it only has 1 positive and negative, or a ground and a 5 volt. And if you want a bunch of different accessories like the Bluetooth Nano, right, the LEDs on there, even though part of it, yeah, I've got the negative over here coming off for the Vi-Fly, right? And then we've got the receiver, right? So I would definitely choose a different all-in-one board next time if I was darting from the ground up that had some more 5-volt and ground pads, would just make things a little bit easier. But so now we're going to mount this up. So since I'm reusing the old bolts and stuff, I'm just going to put those through here at the bottom. And they also have these little donuts on it, which is kind of nice. So instead of just like a little plastic nut, I'm going to use that instead. So I'm going to put that through. I'm going to put it in like this, and then that'll hold it here so that I can slide the board on top. So 3 more to go. And then we'll carefully line the holes up, get it on top of all these little bolts right here, and then slide it down. And there we go. That feels good. So now I can just start attaching the motor wires, right? Get these measured out, clip them off. Yeah, so you want to make sure that because it's not facing forward that we did 1 rotation. So you want to make sure that motor 1, 2, 3, and 4 are lining up. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, since it's not on that X pattern. So this one, so the front right and left I think are going to be a little bit tricky. So this front right one's going to be a little bit tricky because the motor pad's way back here. I mean, luckily we have enough wire, but it's got to go down around the side and then up the corner right here. And keep in mind that there's going to be a prop duct here too. So this one, go down in here and up the side. I'm going to cut right here. Better to have too much than not enough. All right, so I think I got everything measured up. I'm going to clean up all the pads, tin these up, and then solder them down to the board. All right, so I think I've got everything wired up properly, so now it's time for the moment of truth. I mean, why assembling anything more if it's not done right? So we got the motors connected. Yeah, I think I've got all of this stuff. We got the smoke stopper ready right here, which you should always have just in case there's a short, but you should be using a multimeter anyways to check continuity, make sure that there's no shorts. So I don't think there's any shorts here. Definitely not over here, even though these pads are small as F. The only complications I'm actually going to think I might have here is this might be a dud. This is the SpeedyBee Bluetooth Nano. I don't know if this is going to fire off or not because it kind of didn't work on the other one, but we're going to see. If not, I can, once I get another one, I'll just replace the pads on the actual chip. This battery is dead in here for some reason, so I'm hoping that once it gets plugged in, it'll recharge. Maybe there's like a BMS or something. And then I was having some issues with this particular receiver on my other quad, so I might have to replace the receiver, but that's okay because it's just on a quick plug and play right here. So I don't know. Here we go. Let's see what happens. Yes, this is real life. This is live TV, boys and girls, right? It could be smoking or not. Let's see. Cross your fingers. Okay, so that's good. So this fired up. This is probably on. We got a light that works right here. This turned on. So I don't know if it's just because it's powered off the flight controller. We might need a little bit of time to have something plugged in and recharge the little LiPo that was in here. If I have to buy another one, fine, it's only like 10, 15 bucks. And yeah, this Bluetooth Nano 3 looks kaput. It's getting hot, but it's not working. Yeah, so we're in pretty good shape overall. And the receiver doesn't look good as well, so I might have to get a new receiver. So we'll put the rest together and we'll keep moving forward, and there's a couple small things to replace, but that's no big deal. Overall, we're in good shape. All right, so onward and upward, let's just finish getting the air unit stacked up on top of this. I pulled off the Bluetooth module, just put some heat shrink on top of it until I get another one, and I'll solder that on. But I got plenty of wire here for that. I'm really enjoying, actually, comparatively to the Protek 35. I got a lot of space here on the sides, so once I stack this on, we can pull this through. I might need to get a slightly shorter antenna lead here because this is from that one, so we got a lot of extra antenna here. I think this is okay for the camera on the front, but we'll see as we start to put this. But overall, a lot of space here. Yeah, so I'm just going to stack this on top and then I'll screw it down and then we'll see how everything else looks. All right, so now that we got that all sorted, we've got the right bolts underneath the flight controller. I put these nylon nuts on top. The top is just barely poking out, so we know that we got it on all the way. So now we can put the ducts on, and then we'll do the top plate. So we got the ducts here. You got a left side, you got a right side, and you got these little tabs here. So if you're using a smaller flight controller, right, this would help block it in. So we're just going to break these tabs off right here, because if you see, if you try to line it up, you can't because the flight controller's in the way. So we're just going to like clip those tabs off, and then we'll be able to screw this in and make it go over the wires. I'm just going to try these snips right here from my 3D printer. Yeah, that works nice. Yeah, so it's clean, no sharp edges, but if you want to, you could go back and try and clean it up extra just in case. Good. Okay, so then that way when we take this, right, we got a little groove here for the arms and then the wires that come through. Yeah, and you can see that the hole is right down here for where it's at. So we'll just try this side over here. And I might have still just a little too much slack, but we'll see what we get in the motor wires. All right, so we got this lined up pretty well. There's some grooves under here for the motor wires to go through, so you want to make sure they're going through the grooves, they don't get pinched. But once it's on top like this, we're in pretty good shape here. So I'm just going to screw this into place, and then we'll move on to the next one and we'll be set. So let's take a look at the top piece here. We'll start with the XT60 connector. There's also a 3D print here that actually goes over the top that's going to hold your antenna. Like I said, since I have this like really long antenna from iFlight, probably gonna have to order a new one, but for right now I'm gonna use this, and I guess it'll just hang out like the back here, and then I can always come back and change it later. So we'll just get the wire in here in between like so, and it'll just be snug and kind of dangly for now. I think it could actually cut all of this off all the way too, and then you would still just have more of this wire hanging out, so that might be an option as well. But then you take this, goes over the top like this, and then this goes in here like so. Come on, hands, work. And then now we screw it all together. We have these like slightly thicker screws that are in a different bag. And there we go, like that. And I think the next question is going to be, is this too long or is it the right distance for what I was hoping? Am I going to have to go back and trim some more? It's quite possible. Maybe we'll just take a look now. Like I said, I don't mind sharing my failures and successes with you. Right, the whole goal was to make this as easy as possible. So let's just see what happens. Yeah, so if I were to plug this in to the other one, and then if I try to put this down, yeah, it's a little bit tight. So I might have to either go back and cut something off, trim this up, but this isn't going to sit. So this idea isn't going to work. All right, so obviously that's not going to work out. So we're going to go back to the drawing board and figure out what this is and see how to fix it. All right, so I basically just went back and soldered the wires back together. We're in good shape. I think if anything, you could still shorten the wire as it comes, maybe like 1/4 of an inch, and you'd still be able to reach the flight controller, but this closes up perfectly fine. We got this set here. Now the next thing is, and there's tons of space in this thing, and this doesn't even include the stuff on the sides. Question is where do I want to mount the air unit? Do I want to mount it on the front one or the rear one? So I'm just going to plug this in now just to kind of see, right, how much space I have with this. Yeah, as I plug it in here. So with it like this, even if I stack it and push it back, I don't think I'm going to be able to reach the second plate hole. So I think we're going to mount it right here underneath this right now. And then that'll give me a little extra slack here with the camera line. Yeah, and then I'll just wrap it around in a circle like that. So we'll mount the air unit first, and then we'll kind of just start work on sealing up most of the stuff. Okay, so that's mounted in there super nice. And keep in mind what I did is I mounted it in a way so I still have access to the, I think it's a UFL port, right, for the antenna of the air unit. So that would be kind of a bummer if it was flipped the other way, and then in order to get access to that, I got to undo the whole thing. So now this puts the USB port hanging down as well, which makes it even more accessible, but everything is really easily accessible from the sides here, which is kind of cool too. So all I have to do is now snap on the antenna connector here, lock that back down, and then we'll work on the front for the camera and the standoffs and all of that stuff. Okay, so we're pretty much in the home stretch. We've got everything set up here. We got our last final 3D print pieces here. Okay, and obviously I need to replace the Bluetooth Nano here. For that, I'm going to need to get a new ELRS receiver because this one seems to be dead for some reason. But you understand what's going on here for the most part, that you don't need to wait another week or two for me to finish the video for it to be completely complete. So we have this one small piece right down here. Okay, and this is actually for the receiver if you're using an ELRS or something like that. Okay, so you'd put that in here like so, and actually the receiver goes in the front of the quad instead of in the back of it, which I find a little bit interesting, but I'm sure that could always be changed with some 3D printing if it really bothers you. But you just wire it in there, right? It goes underneath, and you're gonna put it here in the front, yeah, and then there's some standoffs, which are right here. And the standoffs will go through this 3D piece, yes, and then on top here, it goes back out the top, And then this is going to be the housing for the camera. So we can mount the camera inside it. Yep, like so. You're going to put it on the standoffs, come down here, and we're going to have all of that stuff. So I'm going to button this up for the most part, and some of the other stuff will be really easy to finish off once I get the rest of my components.